Hey, I'm Aisha. You can now watch UCF TV 24 hours a day on Bright House Digital Channel 1.
Today's participants are Tony Major, and John Weishampel. We join their conversation in the faculty lounge.
If you do that, then you're gonna sleep late. And so she said, Mommy, don't blame Daddy for waking me up. I woke up on my own. You know. But so how long have you been now at UCF?
Since '95, so this is my 9th year, going to my 10th year.
Oh, yeah. We came about the same time.
Yeah. I mean, so in our class we had, do you remember, well, you probably know Maria Santana. She was communication. Do you remember her? She started with us.
No, well, see, when I started in theater, and then I moved into film. Okay. You know, but the past couple of years, but
I'm trying to think who started.
95.
Yeah, Otto Fansteel. That's the one I can think of. He's in chemistry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he and I, we started. Yeah, there was a few of us who started about the same year. Like, So, but I missed orientation, so I don't know.
How can you miss orientation, man?
I was happy to miss orientation. Yeah, I mean, it's tough enough to, I can understand why it's tough to be a student, you know, sitting down in classes, you know, hour after hour. Man, I couldn't sit through orientation, you know.
They're going to tell you how to make all your money with your investments, you see, you know.
Right.
So where'd you come from when you came here?
Right before I came here, I was at Goddard Space Flight Center outside Washington, D.C.
Oh, okay.
And I did my PhD prior to that at University of Virginia, and then I did my undergrad at Duke. And there was, when I was an undergrad, you could see there was a little bit of film stuff going on there.
Oh.
We had some Hollywood connection going on at Duke, and they would send students to Hollywood each year and do stuff.
Okay. Now, did they have a film department there? Or?
You know, I don't think so. And if they did, it must have been pretty small. You know? But they had some people there who were connected, you know, and that made a big difference. And I remember in my dorm, like Richard Harris's son was, you know, in my dorm.
Oh, okay.
So he's out there making films, you know.
So why didn't you go and you did biology?
Yeah,
huh?
not real creative. I think that's the problem. You know?
No,
I get to watch people.
So UCF pulled a coup, huh? Getting you to come here from
NASA.
From NASA, huh?
Well, I never really wanted to stay at NASA. You know, I was there, and I mean, NASA does phenomenal things, and you know, I was part of watching and doing some of the stuff with some amazing scientists, and but I really did want to teach. I really kind of like the idea of teaching. You know, it has its ups and downs, but I think I look at some of the students who I've taught, and I feel you know, like I've done a good job. I'll tell you my most exciting thing. This is kind of my little story here. My first master student I had, his name was Jason Drake. Really good, smart student. You know, then he got his PhD at University of Maryland. He got an assistant professor job at University of Georgia, and he's been teaching there a couple years. Then he just won this big NASA award, and what he decided to do was resign University of Georgia, and he's coming to UCF now. He's going to be a researcher. It's just like, you know, I'm like so excited, you know.
Wow.
Here's this guy, you know, and I feel, you know, I helped kick it off, you know, and just a, you know, amazingly sharp guy. And now he's kind of coming home a little bit, you know, so that's kind of nice.
Well, that's great, man. That's what I was saying to you earlier about a student of mine actually was in the theater department, and he graduated and went and got his master's in film and just finished shooting a feature film and used his classmates here from UCF, so 8 of the major roles
students.
are UCF students in this feature. And now he's the New York Independent Film Market, all of the top film festivals he's going to enter the film in. And who knows, maybe we got another Blair Witch on our hands, right?
Yeah, I
so
think
that's
neat.
great. That's fantastic. Biology, though, I mean, how, you know,
What I do?
I always loved biology, but I never ended up in biology.
Well, I'll tell you what I've been doing. I've been doing some really fun stuff, just things that I think's fun. You know, and I've gotten to a point in my career where I'm like, I'm looking at it and say, if it's fun, I'll do it. You know, so I have this, you know, little gauge in my head.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my biology isn't very laboratory oriented. You know, it's not. I'm not doing a lot of, you know, manipulations in the lab or anything like that. I tend to, you know, explore the outside world, and so my work has mostly been in the tropics, doing tropical forestry work in Panama and Costa Rica, and I had done a little thing in Australia too.
Suriname?
No, I haven't go over there, but I have a buddy who he's actually a soccer coach, and he's from Suriname, and I'd love to go there. You know, I really
you should
would,
miss
yeah.
it. They had a thing at UCF Thursday night on Suriname.
Really?
Yeah, I'll
Oh,
give you the
man.
information, man. It was.
And
they
then-
had a little travel, a little video.
Oh,
and
they
travel
have some
thing.
of the. I think as countries go, proportion-wise to its size, they've set aside the most national parks.
Right,
for
they're trying
forest.
to keep it, even
Yeah.
though the trees are beginning to. You know,
But
everywhere.
that's an area of the world I'd like to go to.
Right.
And but now I dabble though. What
Mm-hmm.
I find myself doing is, if someone has like interesting things, I look to see what they're doing, and I kind of latch on to them and do stuff. Like we have at UCF, we have this professor. His name's Lou Earhart. He's a sea turtle biologist, and
Right,
just a phenomenal sea turtle biologist. You know, he just became a professor emeritus. And I looked what he was doing. I thought, you know, that looks like fun. And so I dabble a little bit in sea turtles, you know. So I said, you know, latch on to him a little bit, see what's going on there, and kind of explore, you know, what's happening there. We have a marine biologist, and she went down to the Keys, and so I kind of tagged along a little bit.
Oh, okay.
We have a marine mammologist, so I'm starting to do little manatee things too. So I'm starting to explore, and I somehow convinced the College of Arts and Sciences to buy me a boat. So I'm like, yeah.
Hey, you need to be a producer, huh?
Yeah, I think so. You know, bring in this stuff. You know.
You can bring in the funds. I can go shoot the film, and then we take the students, and hey, you know.
Yeah. So I'm kind of thinking, you know, I look at the rest of my career here, and I'm thinking, you know, I'm doing things that are fun, you know, things I want to do.
Students love that.
Oh
too.
yeah, and it reflects it. You know, we'll go out on the St. John's River and learn about the river, and it is an amazing place. And the more I learn about it, I learn how much variety there is there, and how unusual it is. You know, the St. John's River was, you know, written when it was explored by some of the early botanists in the 1800s. You know, they wrote, you know, what kind of Florida fauna and flora were out there, and then they sent them back to England, and you know, some of the Romantic writers wrote about it, and Xanadu, a poem, is really based on the St. John's River. You know?
Really?
Yeah, and it is beautiful.
Wow.
I mean, you have these springs coming up. You have manatees. You have, you know, lots of alligators, and you know, just a lot of vegetation. But it's lush, and it's something that I want to learn about. So I can see myself starting, kind of moving away from the tropics, and just kind of studying the backyard, which I think will be more rewarding in a lot of ways, because I think it's hard for me to make a difference what's going on in Costa Rica or Panama or something. But here, you know, I can help formulate policies, really. I can say, okay, if we want to preserve this area, this is what we need to do. And I can become much more of a local expert. And that's what I think I've learned from watching Lou Earhart. I said, okay, what does Lou do? Well, Lou, I think his job's perfect. You know, it's not perfect for everyone, it's perfect for me. What he does is he goes to the beach every summer. You know, he watches the turtles. He monitors the turtles. He nets the turtles. He studies them thoroughly in and out. So he's a turtle expert. He's you know, the most famous turtle expert right now in Florida, because he's kind of dedicated his life to it, learning about it, and he was critical in establishing a national wildlife refuge, the Archie Carr
Right,
National Wildlife
right,
Refuge.
right. I remember
You know, and
reading
that's a
about
big impact. I mean, so he has a legacy now. You know, his legacy is you know, this park that will hopefully, you know, live forever. You know, and that's because there were scientists like Lou who dedicated, you know, their life's work to it.
Wow. You know, because that's really one of the reasons that I came back to Florida. You know, I'm originally from Florida, from Sarasota, but the reason I came back was because I really wanted to leave a legacy in terms of helping start the film industry in Florida. Now, I knew it was supposed to have had some type of industry going, but I said if I can come now and be a part of that rather than waiting till it becomes big and then coming here and saying, jump on the bandwagon, yay, look at me. I wanted to come early and be a part of the formation, you know, of that, and maybe help develop some. So maybe some of the, might be past my time now, but some of my students can now become that instrument to embellish the film industry here in Florida. I mean, it is phenomenal. I mean, the weather's right, the time, I mean, the locations, I mean, the talent, everything is here. So why not, you know, make it, you know, that type of an industry. So that's, you know, that kind of dedication in terms of what you're talking about in terms of biology and turtles is what I feel in terms of film, you know, in my area.
Well,
you know.
the neat thing that I see about films and art and literature, and I think I'm coming to realize this kind of, in some cases I think it's sad, but the reality is, you know, I can write a scientific paper. You know, I can write a scientific paper. Well, you know, how many people read that scientific paper? Maybe 100, maybe. How many people actually use that information? You know, maybe 10. You know, it all depends. You know, maybe I write a phenomenal scientific paper, you know, where, you know, it will change the world. But in most cases, the science writing, I think, is crossing T's and dotting I's. You know, kind of, you know, adding to it, but not necessarily revolutionizing the world that we're living in. The bigger impacts I see are things that people, you know, are watching in film. Film is very big, and I also see a competitor of film, or maybe a collaborator, are video games. I look at them and I say, you know, these are impacting people, you know, one way or another. You know, it's, you know, mostly it's just all for fun, mostly. But sometimes there's little take-home messages here and there, and certainly film, I think, tries more. Film, I think, is not as so much just, you know, sheer entertainment oriented as most of the games are these days. But I think what I'm trying to do also, where I'm interacting with some of the digital media people, I'm trying to create a game. But I see this as a learning tool, where children who are less familiar with the outside world can kind of explore this virtual game that maybe will help lead them to explore the outside world. We're at a time, this year they say, is the first year where the majority of the world will live in an urban setting. So what that means is the natural world is more foreign to people. And so what I'm going to try to do, you know, we're building this virtual forest for the Orlando Science Center, is trying to kind of merge the two and maybe make it more of a portal that people can say, okay, I've kind of explored the natural world, you know, in the virtual environment. Well, maybe now I'll be more likely to go out and explore the natural world in its real environment.
That's great.
Yeah, so it's kind of a weird twist. You know, so I've kind of, you know, started with biology. I mean, some of the biology I did was, you know, really traditional biology, but now I'm kind of merging into weird little realms. But it's exciting because it is that one kind of interfacing. You know, so I'm learning how digital media is working, or how it works in some respect. And I think it may help educate our children, and I think that's where the impact is. You know, the biggest impact, you know, isn't so much. I mean, I'm as scientists go, I'm okay. You know, I can do science, but I think a bigger impact I can make is maybe doing things where it's more visible to people. You know, like Earhart. You know, one of his legacies is that National Wildlife Refuge. That's amazing. You know, amazing legacy. People producing films. I mean, films live on forever. You know, that's kind of neat. So I mean, scientific papers, yeah, certainly they get cited, repeatedly, and but I think in terms of the actual impact,
that's interesting. I just had an email last night from a friend of mine who teaches law now. He went to Columbia, Yale, and Harvard. Has a law degree, I think, from Harvard. But he's also been in the film business, was executive in Hollywood. And he said to me that exactly what you're saying. He said, Tony, you know that your theater is not as impactful as your film, in the sense that the theater lives for that moment in the audience that sees it, and then it's done. Whereas film, like you just said, lives forever. Yeah. So he said, now is the time for you to go back to doing, now that you're in the film department, doing those kinds of projects with your students that can have that impact, and that also can be seen all over the place, and also have, and can last, forever.
And I think film, even though the majority of films are produced for entertainment and making money, it's amazing the impacts they have. That on the surface, people make a film and they say, okay, I'm making a film because of these reasons, and they may put little things in the film that people don't realize, and even the people directing and producing it don't realize, but it impacts. And for instance, there was a study recently that shows more films are showing people smoking, and then they show this relationship of children increase in smoking. So you have these hidden things that you don't know about, but that shows the power of the media. Right. Because children, they say, well, I want to emulate this person.
Image is everything.
That's right.
Agassi said.
Yeah, that's right.
Image is everything, man. Like maybe in here there's a Finding Nemo. You mentioned earlier about the biology that's in Finding Nemo, that we can hook up and do some kind of film thing that has that entertaining and also have that biology in it.
I think that's biology has many, many stories. There are so many stories in biology. And the ability to convey those stories, requires someone who knows how to tell stories, knows how to present stories in film or in written form or television. And the only way that I think we can preserve, what I consider important, natural systems I think are very important, is if we can convey the importance of them to everybody. And as a biologist, I'm not skilled at doing that. That's why it's necessary to rely on other people so they can help, enable. I can tell you about the stories, but I can't convey it to the masses.
Well, you know what? It's interesting now because the new head of the film division is Phil Peters. He developed the game for X-Files.
Okay. Yeah.
So when you mention about developing a game with biology and learning process and environment and stuff in terms of make it interactive, I mean, he might be someone that would be able to guide or connect with in terms of that, because that was his development.
Oh, see, I looked at science centers. I've been to many, many natural history museums, and you've probably seen these as well. They have dioramas. A diorama is kind of the static thing where maybe there's stuffed animals here, maybe there's Native Americans doing something, but it's a static system where you're behind this glass and you're looking at statues or stuffed animals. Okay, and I thought, wow, well that's interesting, but in some ways it is so dull. It's not. It's a waste of space. I look at it, I say, boy, I mean, yeah, there's art design, there's set design, but wouldn't it be more exciting if they could actually explore them? Like, let's say you have a prehistoric scene where you have these dinosaurs here. Okay, you have these dinosaurs, instead of them just sitting here, now they have the little robotronic ones where they move slightly. Well, let's add another dimension where you can actually get in with the dinosaurs, move around the dinosaurs, watch the dinosaurs behave, not just shaking their head back and forth. Let's watch them move around, and you are now maybe an active participant or maybe just an active observer, but you're able to move around the dinosaurs and see everything going on.
Wow.
And that's a whole different learning experience. And I think it can be much more powerful than a behind the glass diorama.
Well, we certainly have some digital media students who would love to jump on that project and work with you on it. You say you have some now.
I have about 10. I have about 10
Wow.
digital media students, and some of them are just phenomenal. And I've been in class with them because when I first got some money to do this, the National Science Foundation is paying for this, and I said, well, I better learn something about it, And I learned very quickly how inept I am at doing some of this, and I just watch these students who are extremely talented, and they're able to create these virtual worlds. And not only that, you have these students. I grew up. I played video games, but not like these students.
Right.
These students play video games, know histories of games, know lineages of games, know different terminologies. They know how to describe these things.
My son, who's 7. I mean, his thing though is NASCAR. So I had to buy him this wheel, and I mean, here he is going around every track that the actual NASCAR at 170, 180 miles an hour. Yeah. Now, of course, if the car crashes, he can go back to the pit and start over.
Sure.
But I mean, and he'll sit there for hours. Yeah. I mean, yesterday I just had to tell him, look, you've been on there too long. Get off of it. But I mean, from sun up to sundown. But I mean, into that interactive. So he can design the car. Yeah. He can put, he's a Jeff Gordon, fan, of course. But I'm Jimmy Johnson. He gives everybody in the household a name, right? Yeah. But he can paint it. He can design it. He can drive it. He can fix it. He gets the real sounds of
and he can design the courses.
The courses. I mean, it's fun, and he just loves it. Yeah. So imagine doing that in a historical manner with biology or dinosaurs or whatever. I mean,
that's a phenomenal creative tool. Right. And what you learn, what I've learned, watching some of these games, for the most part, the games, I think, are limited in terms of, learning. But they could be so powerful. I mean, they really could be powerful. And I think we're just starting to explore, how we can use them as learning tools. Your son's ability to master these tracks and memorize, where the turns are coming up and know when to take pit stops. All these details.
He told me about some track that is not flat anymore. It's a 20-degree angle. Yeah. A Homestead. Yeah. And okay, I have to know these tracks because he quizzes me on them. Right? Well, quizzes his mother. But anyway, he knows all the tracks. He knows whether they're oval or round or whatever you call them. He knows what cities. He knows the states. Yep. So he learns all of that. And Monday morning I can't get my new sports page because he's got the sports page. So now he's reading the newspaper stories, and he's writing reports and drawing events that happen during the race because he doesn't miss a race now.
And think of,
so the offshoots are learning how to read the newspaper, learning how to the angles and
physics
degrees,
involved,
the physics involved. Yeah. The pit stops to this. How you have to wind draft. Yeah. I'm saying, what is he? This is 7 years old, man. I had to lift the wind draft and go to the inside, and I mean, he knows the dynamics of all of it because he's learned all of those extra things that picks up in terms of the math, the reading ability, comprehension, and being able to write a comic book and write stories.
It's phenomenal. And I mean, my son, a little older, he's 11, but he was involved in the Pokemon craze. Okay. So I mean, he memorized all these pseudo creatures. He understood what creature changed into another creature, how they were related in terms of this is a plant Pokemon, this is a fire Pokemon, this is a rock Pokemon. And you understand that these children have almost like an infinite capacity to learn.
Right.
And these games, they're latching onto them, and they really help facilitate some of these things.
My daughter's 3, and she's on the computer by herself. Yeah. I mean, with her games, and she just no, let me do it. Let me do it. I mean, unreal. I mean, she's not even reading yet. I mean, she's reading. She thinks she's reading because she reads, every book every night. But in terms of her playing those games and knowing what they do and how to manipulate that mouse and work. I mean, it's, you know.
So we've gone beyond from being kind of, you know, passive, you know, TV watchers. You know, if your son's able to, you know, he can watch it on the Speed Channel, or he can drive it.
Right,
know?
right.
He can do it. You
Right,
know?
he can do it.
You know?
I mean, he's got the floor pedals and
Yeah.
the throttle and the brakes and this, and he knows, you know, oh, I burn up the engine because I didn't, the revs and the, you
And
know.
I haven't been involved with this, but I know some of my friends are. But they, you know, they're doing the interactive stuff through the internet now. So I mean, like one of my friends, he was involved in, like, he had a flight squadron, you know, which are buddies of his that, you know, reside all over the world, but they can fly together and go on missions and things like that.
I have a friend like that in New York who does that. He has things set up, and he has the wheel, and he actually flight, and he said, I mean, it's actual real, and they actually fly into the real airports and the, you know, the whole. So my son is into, I mean, he's into that too, you know, the planes and the cars and all that. But he's just NASCAR on the brain, you know, from the time he wakes up till bedtime, you know.
And
but,
the other thing that I can see, some of the applications are, you know, if you want to start exploring microscopic worlds. I mean, you can, if you want to go, I mean, the classic movies, you know, Fantastic Voyage, you know, where you're a little, you know, microscopic thing going through someone's, you know, body. Well, we can do that virtually. You know, we can explore cells virtually. We can go to any ecosystem we want. We can go to any planet, you know, if we have the information what it's like, and we can explore it. There's a group with your digital media group that I'm tangentially involved with that produce this thing called Red Planet. Okay, so they're kind of designing this movie ride to explore Mars. And I told him, I said, well, because I worked at NASA before, I said, well, you know, you could actually get the topography of Mars if you wanted to really add another layer of realism to it. You could have them explore actual, you know, geologic structures on Mars. You know, you could go to the giant mountain. You can go to these craters. You can go do that because those data are out there, and now you can integrate it in this virtual world, and that would make it more powerful. And, you know, imagine astronomers. I mean, from years ago. Now you could say, well, we'll just take you there on the computer and explore it.
Wow. Because I've always, you know, I've always had these crazy ideas that I wanted to make my ceiling like that, you know. But I even actually went to the National Museum in Observatory in New York. And at that time they had some little machine, but they said it had to be a dome shape because I wanted to lay back and just the stars and, you know, I mean, the whole galaxy was just there for me. You know what I mean?
Oh, was this at the Rose Center at the National Museum?